My parents said my brother deserved the family business, and they told me I would never own a single part of what our family had spent generations building. They never expected the company's secret majority shareholder to stand up during the final board meeting, call my name in front of everyone, reveal the truth they had hidden for years, and change the future of our family forever. I was 12 years old the first time my father told me that the family business belonged to my older brother. "You've got a good heart," he said while patting my shoulder, "but Ethan has what it takes to lead." At 12, I didn't even know what that meant. What I did know was that every Saturday morning, Ethan went to the office with Dad while I stayed home helping Mom clean the house. Every family dinner turned into another conversation about Ethan's future, Ethan's ideas, Ethan's leadership. I wasn't ignored, I was simply expected to accept my place. By the time I graduated from college with a business degree, I still believed hard work could change their minds. I joined Harper Manufacturing at the very bottom. No special office, no executive title, no family privilege. I worked on the production floor, learned every machine, every department, every customer complaint. Employees respected me because I respected them. My brother? He walked straight into the executive suite. Whenever sales dropped, Dad blamed the economy. Whenever I suggested improvements, he smiled politely. "You're thinking too small." 6 months later, Ethan presented my exact ideas as his own. The board applauded. Dad called him a visionary. I stayed silent. After all, maybe family was more important than recognition. Years passed. The company grew, but so did Ethan's arrogance. He ignored experienced managers. He spent money on flashy headquarters instead of upgrading outdated equipment. He treated employees like numbers instead of people. Still, my parents defended him. Leadership requires confidence. No, leadership requires humility, but nobody wanted to hear that. Then everything changed. One Friday afternoon, Dad called me into his office. Mom was sitting beside him. Ethan stood near the window with a smile that immediately made me nervous. Dad folded his hands. "I've decided to retire." I smiled. "Congratulations." He nodded. "At next month's board meeting, Ethan will officially become CEO." I wasn't surprised. Then came the sentence that hurt more than I expected. "As for ownership," he paused, "you'll receive a generous severance package." I frowned. "What?" Mom avoided my eyes. Dad continued. "The company has always been intended for Ethan. I've worked here for 15 years. We know. I helped build this company. So did many employees. You told me this was a family business. It is." I looked directly at him. "So I'm not family?" Silence. Then Ethan laughed. "You'll always be family, just not an owner." Dad pushed an envelope toward me. Inside was a check. Enough money to disappear quietly. It felt like they were paying me to erase my own history. I left without taking it. That night, my wife Emily found me sitting in the garage. She didn't ask questions. She simply sat beside me. After several minutes, I finally whispered, "They chose him." She squeezed my hand. "No, they underestimated you." Those words stayed with me. For the next month, I continued working exactly as before. No arguments, no revenge, no bitterness. Employees noticed nothing, but something strange started happening. Several longtime managers quietly thanked me for everything I'd done over the years. One even said, "Whatever happens at the board meeting, remember that some people know who really kept this company alive." I didn't understand what he meant until the meeting. The conference room was filled with directors, attorneys, accountants, and senior executives. Dad stood proudly at the front. "My family has spent 3 generations building Harper Manufacturing." Everyone applauded. He continued, "It is my honor to recommend my son, Ethan Harper, as the next CEO." Another round of applause. Then he added, "As majority shareholder, I approve the transition." Before anyone could vote, a voice interrupted. "I don't." The room froze. An elderly gentleman slowly stood from the far end of the table. I recognized him immediately. Mr. Charles Whitmore. For 20 years, he had attended nearly every annual meeting. Nobody paid much attention to him. Dad always introduced him as an old family friend. Nothing more. Dad's smile disappeared. "Charles." Mr. Whitmore looked directly at him. "I think it's time everyone learned the truth." The attorneys exchanged confused looks. He reached into a leather briefcase and placed several folders on the table. "The voting shares your family publicly owns represent 42% of this company." Silence. He continued, "I own 51%. Gasps echoed around the room. Dad's face turned pale. Ethan whispered, "That's impossible." "It isn't." One attorney quickly reviewed the documents before nodding. "They're authentic." Nobody spoke. Then Mr. Whitmore turned towards me. "Michael." For the first time in my life, someone in that room called my name with genuine respect. "Please come stand beside me." My legs barely moved. I walked to the front. He smiled warmly. "When your grandfather founded this company, I asked him to become my silent investment partner." Everyone stared. He continued, "He feared future generations might confuse inheritance with leadership." I looked at him in disbelief. He continued, "We made a private agreement." Dad lowered his head. Mr. Whitmore spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. When the time came, I would transfer my controlling shares only to the family member who earned them. The room became completely silent. Ethan finally exploded. Then give them to me. Mr. Whitmore calmly shook his head. I've spent 15 years watching both of you. He looked toward the employees seated around the table. I've walked through factories without announcing who I was. I've spoken with workers during lunch. I've listened. Then he faced me again. They never praised your title. They praised your character. My throat tightened. He continued. They said you knew their children's names. They said you stayed late when machines failed. They said you took responsibility instead of looking for someone to blame. He turned toward Ethan. They feared you. Then he faced the board. Leadership isn't inherited, it's demonstrated. He picked up the final document. Effective immediately, I am transferring my 51% ownership to Michael Harper. The room erupted. Dad stood up. You can't do this. I already have. The attorneys reviewed the paperwork. It's legally executed. Ethan slammed his hands onto the table. This company belongs to me. I finally found my voice. No, it belongs to everyone who helped build it. Those words weren't planned. They simply came from my heart. The board requested a recess. When they returned, the vote was unanimous. I became the new chairman. Not because I was my father's son, because I'd earned their trust. After the meeting, Dad stopped me in the hallway. I never thought Charles would choose you. I looked at him for several seconds. You never thought I was worth choosing. His eyes filled with regret. For the first time, he had no defense. Months passed. The changes weren't dramatic. They were simple. We invested in employees instead of appearances. We modernized production. We promoted people based on performance instead of family connections. Profits increased. Employee turnover dropped. Customers noticed the difference. One afternoon, Ethan came to my office. He looked different, humbled. I was angry. I know. I blamed you. I know. He took a deep breath. I should have learned from you instead of competing with you. That conversation didn't erase the past, but it opened the door to a better future. As for my parents, rebuilding trust took much longer. They apologized, more than once. Forgiveness wasn't a single decision. It was hundreds of small choices over time. Eventually, we found a new relationship, not because we forgot the pain, but because we finally acknowledged the truth. Years later, when young managers ask me how I became the owner of a company everyone assumed would never be mine, they expect me to talk about business strategy, legal documents, or luck. Instead, I tell them something much simpler. Titles can be handed to you. Respect cannot. Money can buy authority. It cannot buy trust. And the greatest inheritance any family can leave behind isn't a business, a fortune, or a famous name. It's the courage to recognize the person who quietly does the right thing even when nobody's watching. Because in the end, the board didn't change my future. One man simply revealed a truth that had been waiting patiently for years. Sometimes the people who overlook your value are the very ones who never truly understood it. So, if you've ever been told you weren't good enough, weren't the favorite, or didn't deserve the opportunities someone else received, remember this. The opinions that hurt you the most are not always the ones that define your future. Sometimes the person who believes in you has been watching in silence all along, and when the truth finally comes to light, it doesn't just change one life, it changes every life that comes after it forever.